Dhaka, Bangladesh, 2016. Inside Bangladesh Bank, one of the country's most secure institutions, billions of dollars sat under layers of financial security. But behind those walls, something was already wrong. Hackers had quietly entered the bank's computer network. They weren't carrying weapons. They weren't breaking down doors. They were sitting thousands of miles away, manipulating the same systems the bank trusted every day. And their target was enormous, nearly $1 billion. What followed would become one of the most audacious cyber heists in history. This is the story of the Bangladesh Bank heist. Bangladesh Bank is the central bank of Bangladesh. And like central banks around the world, it manages enormous amounts of money. Part of Bangladesh's foreign currency reserves was held through an account at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. That account was connected to the global financial system, and that meant one thing. If someone could successfully impersonate Bangladesh Bank, they could potentially send payment instructions worth millions of dollars. The hackers understood this, but they didn't rush. They spent time studying the bank. They learned how employees communicated. They learned how the network worked. They identified the computers connected to the bank's financial operations, and eventually, they found a way inside. The attackers reportedly used malicious emails to infect computers inside Bangladesh Bank. It was an old technique with a devastating result. Someone opened the wrong email. Malware entered the network, and suddenly, the attackers had a foothold. But entering the network wasn't enough. The hackers needed to understand the environment before making their move. So they stayed quiet. They moved through the system. They watched. They gathered information. And eventually, they reached one of the most important pieces of the operation, SWIFT. SWIFT is the global messaging system banks use to send instructions for international financial transactions. It doesn't simply work like an online banking app. Instead, it allows financial institutions to communicate instructions securely. And if the attackers could make those instructions appear legitimate, the Federal Reserve could potentially process them. The hackers had found their weapon. Now they needed the right moment. Dhaka, Bangladesh, February 4th, 2016. It was Thursday night. The working week was coming to an end. Inside Bangladesh Bank, employees were preparing to leave. But the attackers were just getting started. Using compromised systems, they began sending fraudulent payment instructions to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The instructions appeared to come from Bangladesh Bank, and they requested transfers to accounts in the Philippines and elsewhere. The first requests were for millions of dollars, then more. In total, the attackers attempted roughly $1 billion in transfers. If everything had gone according to plan, Bangladesh could have lost almost its entire reserve held at the New York Fed. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the payment instructions was destined for a foundation in Sri Lanka, but the hackers made a simple spelling mistake. They misspelled foundation. That tiny error triggered a problem. The suspicious transaction was questioned, and suddenly, one of the transfers was stopped. It was a small mistake, but it gave investigators the first clue that something was wrong. The attackers quickly canceled several other transactions, but some had already gone through. 4 major transfers succeeded. The total? Approximately $81 million. The money was now moving into accounts in the Philippines, and the hackers needed to make sure nobody could follow it. Eventually, Bangladesh Bank realized something was seriously wrong. Millions of dollars had been transferred out, and the money was already in another country. The investigation exploded. Banks, cybersecurity companies, law enforcement agencies, financial investigators. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Who did this? And how had they managed to break into one of the world's most secure financial systems? Investigators began following the money, and the trail led to the Philippines. There, the stolen funds had been distributed among several accounts, Some of the money was converted into Philippine pesos. Then it was moved through casinos. The money was disappearing, one transaction at a time. As investigators dug deeper, something unexpected began to emerge. The malware used in the attack appeared to share characteristics with tools connected to previous cyber attacks, and investigators eventually linked the Bangladesh bank operation to hackers believed to be associated with North Korea. The United States later attributed the Bangladesh bank hackers. The attackers attempted to steal nearly $1 billion, but most of it was stopped. Only around $81 million successfully left Bangladesh Bank, and even that wasn't entirely lost forever. Investigators eventually recovered part of the stolen money, but a significant portion remained missing, and the case exposed something terrifying about modern banking. You don't necessarily need to break into a bank to rob it. You can attack the systems that tell banks where the money should go. The Bangladesh bank heist wasn't just about $81 million. It changed how financial institutions looked at cybersecurity, because the attackers didn't destroy the bank. They didn't crash the entire system. They didn't announce themselves. They quietly entered, learned how the system worked, and then impersonated the bank itself. That is what made the attack so dangerous. The criminals didn't fight the security system head-on. They found a way to make the system trust them. And that is the terrifying reality of cybercrime. The next major robbery may not involve someone walking into a bank. It may happen while everyone inside is asleep. No alarms, no broken windows, no masked criminals, just a computer sending a message.